Hey, what's going on, guys? So, today I'm going to be doing a speed paint video, and before we get started, I wanted to let you guys know a few things. First off, I've had this idea in my head for years now, and I'm even making my own comic book story about this, which is called DC Comics Enter Our World. DC Comics, please don't sue, by the way. And in this story, several people from our world are chosen by DC heroes to become their proteges, become heroes, and form their own superhero team. For this speed paint episode, though, I'm going to focus on just the 9 characters that are like the main focus of the comic book story. I actually got this idea from channels like Popcross Studios, which you should definitely check out if you want more detailed and, in my opinion, better artworks. The last thing I wanted to let you guys know is that I'm not well versed in a lot of computer based art platforms, as I'm more of a pen and paper kind of artist. So if things seem a little too simple or not detailed enough or shading doesn't look right, that's me. But with that out of the way, let's get into the backstories for our world's superheroes. Even when he was young, Anthony Alessandrini always loved DC Comics. He was always fascinated by the characters and would even come up with stories of how he was in the DC Comics world, even teaming up with Batman and becoming his new sidekick. However, nothing prepared him for the DC Comics Enter Our World event, which happened while he and his friends were at a Comic Con. There, he battled against Riddler and his henchmen, getting the attention of Batman, who later handpicked Anthony as his protege for our world. And so, meeting up later with Anthony, Bruce informed him of this decision, and so Anthony became the new superhero known as Batboy, the Dark Knight of our world. He was then trained by Bruce, Alfred, and the rest of the Batman family in the ways of combat, becoming an expert at several different forms of martial arts. His favorite weapons to use are the usual batarangs and his bat sword, which is a custom-made katana with a 4-foot-long blade that can cut through most materials. His suit is made of a special Kevlar, which can protect him from most attacks, but point-blank bullet or a special knife stab can still pierce the suit. His main mode of transportation is from his bat bike, which can go up to speeds of over 200 miles per hour. After his first few missions, though, Anthony was discouraged that he was still being called a boy and still being treated like one as well. And so, he talked with Bruce to have his name changed from Batboy to Bat Knight. After the DC Comics characters left our world and back to theirs, Anthony promised Batman that he would do what he could to keep peace in his world and protect it from danger. And he did, with the help of his friends, who were heroes in their own rights. While he was never a big fan of DC Comics, William Matthew Smith was always up for any kind of trivia that his friend Anthony might have. However, he never expected to be part of such a big event like the DC Comics Enter Our World event. During that time, he discovered something very special. It turns out he's a part Kryptonian, being the son of Superboy and an unnamed human woman. He was sent to our world when he was just a small baby. He was then found and raised by the Smiths, who took him in and raised him as one of their own. While he wasn't too happy about learning this, he was still accepting of it, and with the help of Superman, he discovered more of his powers. While he can't fly exactly, he has most of the other Kryptonian powers, including superhuman strength, durability, and he has some levitation. He also has X-ray vision, but he can't shoot lasers from his eyes. To help with this, Superman actually made a custom suit for William that could actually amplify several of his powers. These include helping him to actually fly with the help of rocket boots and shoot heat vision with the help of special goggles. He then entered the world as Super Smith. His popularity then soared, and many villains actually tried their luck in attempting to stop him, though only one would come close, but we'll get to that another time. Not long after he began training, he actually met a fellow superhero who was actually one of his friends, named Batboy, though that was later changed to Bat Knight. Then, when the DC characters returned to their own world, William promised Superman that he would defend his world with the same compassion and strength that Superman has with his. Growing up, Gabby Ford lived with her two younger brothers, whom she always had a great relationship with, always being there to comfort them in times of need. While her life was hard in many respects, she had good friends around her to keep her going and keep positive. Then, when the DC Comics characters entered our world, she was amazed by several of the heroes and their abilities. Not long after, she was chosen by Catwoman to be the anti hero's protege, and soon re entered the world as Miss Tiger. However, to do this, Gabby knew she needed a special suit to help her in combat. So, she made a special suit that enhanced several of her abilities and gave her cat like reflexes and agility. She also has a whip that can cut through some heavy duty clothings, and she uses that to travel across the rooftops of Laurel City. However, on her first actual hero mission, she stopped a group of robbers at a jewelry store, but then was nearly apprehended by the group of heroes in this world known as the New Justice League, who thought that she was responsible for the theft. It wasn't until she actually saw the leader of that team, Bat Knight, in action that she realized they were her friends. And so, with the help of Bat Knight to vouch for her, as they both immediately knew each other's identities, she actually became part of the New Justice League. However, she has a hard time working alongside other heroes, mostly because she was trained by a criminal and keeps some criminal like traits. However, she has proven time and time again that she is a full on hero. However, sometimes she really can't help herself when she really wants something like a diamond necklace. Growing up, Kofi Ames always wanted to try to connect with his inner spirit. At one point, he even turned to magic as a solution. However, no matter what he did, he never felt like he really connected with himself. That all changed when the DC Comics Enter Our World event began. Not long after the initial event, Kofi found a strange looking helmet on his way home. When he picked it up, he was instantly teleported to the Tower of Fate, where Dr. Fate actually was studying what had happened and informed Kofi of what the helmet was. It was actually the mask of Ketba, who was an ancient Lord of Order who was cast out of the DC universe for interfering with human affairs. But Ketba had actually chosen Kofi to find the helmet and to bring him to Dr. Fate in order to train him. And that's what Dr. Fate did, as the next few days would take up a majority of Kofi's training. Then, after a few missions alongside Dr. Fate in the magical dimension, Kofi was able to enter the world as Sorcerer K. Being a sorcerer trained by Dr. Fate means Kofi has a mastery of all forms of spells, including flight, teleportation, and mind manipulation. He can even shoot concussive blasts that can incapacitate any magical being. He later became part of the New Justice League, though on the team he doesn't really work alongside a lot of them, as he prefers to work alone as he knows a lot about the magical dimension and that's where most of his missions go to. However, when he does work alongside them, they usually go to the magical dimension, so he usually takes the lead on their missions. However, even before he was a superhero, he hadn't really been open to others. But with the team encouraging him more and more and having his back on every mission, he's learned to open up to them, and with that, he was able to truly find out who he really was. Growing up, Brody Escalante was not very talkative and wasn't exactly social. Because of this, many of his friends jokingly referred to him as being part robot, though Brody even knew that they were joking about that. However, when the DC Comics Enter Our World event began, that joke actually came true. During the initial event, Superman was in a battle with Bizarro, and Brody was sadly caught in the crossfire, having part of a building crumble on top of him. He was saved, but many of his limbs and organs had to be replaced with robotic machinery. Because of this, Brody was distraught and ran away from everyone. However, it was with the help of another superhero known as Cyborg that Brody was able to find a new place in society. So, Brody left the world and re entered as Power Cannon, the Metallic Warrior. However, he has more abilities than Cyborg ever had, including the ability to create force fields around himself and others that could survive 10 tons of TNT. He can also create holographic duplicates of himself and others. He can also decrypt anything given enough time, and hack into any computer as well. However, this doesn't work vice versa, as many villains have from time to time been able to hack into his own circuits and turn him off when they want to. When he began working as a founding member of the new Justice League, he was initially confused as to why he and his friends were all chosen. But after a few days, he found that they were chosen because they worked well with each other. And he was the first New Justice League member to actually see the Bat Lab, where fellow founder Bat Knight actually does a lot of his detective work. He actually works alongside Bat Knight a lot, including with some investigations when Bat Knight needs security camera footage that he can't get normally. When the DC characters left our world, Brody also promised Cyborg that he would re-emerge into society and try to find a real place in it aside from being a superhero. When she was in high school, Felicia Edit was part of her school's cross-country team. She strived to be one of the fastest members of the team, but no matter how hard she trained, she couldn't get any faster than she already was. She tried everything, but nothing really seemed to work. Then, during the DC Comics Enter Our World event, she was astounded to see the Flash, who was literally the fastest man alive. So, she began to try to hunt down the Flash, but she couldn't even really keep up with him. The next evening, when it was raining, she was catching her breath when a lightning bolt struck her and sent her flying into a nearby laboratory where she was drenched in chemicals. 2 days later, she then woke up in a hospital and was completely healed like nothing had happened. Then, on her way home, she ran into the Flash, who actually said they met before. Turns out, while she was unconscious, Felicia had managed to enter the Speed Force, where she was found by the Flash. So, when she got home, she designed her own suit to become a speedster like the Flash, and soon enter the world as Flash Girl, though she later changed her name to Speed Queen. Now as a speedster, she can go ridiculously fast, going much faster than the speed of sound and the speed of light. The Flash also promised to train her into honing her abilities and becoming a true speedster, even informing her that the Speed Force is what gives a speedster their powers, and Felicia can actually generate her own Speed Force. However, even after Flash trained her in everything she needed to know, Felicia still had questions about the Speed Force and for other speedsters. She became part of a team known as the New Justice League, and on the team, obviously she's the fastest member. Her most common superhero partner to work with is actually fellow founder Animal Girl, mostly because the two like to joke around a lot. When the DC characters left our world, Felicia promised Flash that she would better herself first, focus on training second, as he taught her that it was more important to focus on yourself and to better your own being than it was to train yourself to become stronger. Growing up, Connor Justice was Anthony's best friend, and Connor always had a fascination with some DC characters. Then, during the DC Comics Enter Our World event, he and Anthony got the chance to meet their favorite DC characters in person. However, Connor didn't get to meet a lot of them in the ways that he wanted to. After the initial event, Connor then met up at school with his science teacher, Tim Martin, to go over an experiment that Connor had sadly missed the previous day. However, this experiment turned to the worst when it accidentally exploded. Connor was left in the rubble, but he found no trace of Martin anywhere. Connor assumed that he had perished, and when he looked at himself in the mirror, he saw that his appearance had completely changed. Luckily, the superhero Firestorm was in the neighborhood and saw the explosion. He helped Connor understand what his powers were, and Connor soon re-entered the world as Fireblast. As Fireblast, Connor can, logically, throw balls of fire and can control fire. He can also fly and has some enhanced abilities. He then became a founding member of the new Justice League and pretty quickly discovered that his best friend Anthony was actually Bat Knight. When the DC characters left, Connor promised Firestorm that he would do what he could to try to figure out what happened to Mr. Martin. Not long after, he actually did. Martin's body was completely fused with Connor's, and his consciousness was still in Connor's head, though it had remained silent as he wanted Connor to learn about his abilities before bringing on this amount of stress to him. When Connor then powered down, they defused, and now they can work together as a duo. In these instances, Martin's body remains itself, but he sends out his consciousness to Connor when it is needed. When he was growing up, Timothy Hicks was extremely knowledgeable about several comic book characters, mostly from the comics he collected. However, he never really wanted to meet them until he actually did. During the DC Comics Center Our World event, he was astounded by the array of powers that were shown before him, and he wanted to be on the same level as them. Then, after the initial event, he found what looked like a yellow lantern ring. However, it was dimmed and couldn't fly to him. He took it and then brought it to Green Lantern, who told him that the ring was out of power and couldn't use its normal abilities, that is, to control the mind of someone who can instill fear. So, with Green Lantern's help, Tim was able to upgrade the ring into its own unique variant, known as a Golden Lantern ring. Tim then decided to wear it, and it gave him a special costume to become what he called the Nightmare. With the ring, his powers alternate depending on what mood he's in, as he can channel all of the emotional spectrum. However, he prefers to stay with the power of fear, as he likes to instill some fear into the hearts of criminals. Later on in his career, though, he became less and less known as the Nightmare and more as the Golden Lantern, or just put simply, the Gold Lantern. He even began his own unique Lantern Corps, known as the Gold Lantern Corps. Though this team only started out with 9 members, as that was the amount of lantern rings that Tim had access to, it grew to every galaxy in the universe. The Lantern Corps operate as they do in the comics, with each one acting as a galactic police officer. When the DC Comics characters left, Tim promised Green Lantern that he would do what he could to try to keep himself under control and to protect his world. Growing up, Nicole Penabianco always loved nature and animals, even doing what she could to help animals in need. Because of this, when her friend Anthony introduced her to some DC characters, she was immediately drawn to the characters that had abilities related to animals. Then, during the DC Characters Enter Our World event, she was enamored by heroes such as Beast Boy, who could morph their shape into whatever they wanted. Later, she met up with Beast Boy and Animal Man and told them about what she wanted to do, and together they created a special suit that could allow her to harness the powers of several animals. However, Nicole wanted to take that up a step further and altered the suit to include the ability to shape her body into whatever animal she wanted just by concentrating hard enough. With this power, she became known as Animal Girl. Now, just by concentrating hard enough, she can change into whatever animal she wants, though her favorites are a wolf, a dinosaur, and a falcon. However, this had strange side effects on her genes. A few days later, she found that her skin had turned a pure green, and her hair had turned a dark green as well. She was horrified by this and ran away from home because she thought that her parents would kick her out. She spent her nights at the Justice Hall, the base of operations for her team, the New Justice League, and she would cry herself to sleep thinking of the horrors that would happen to her if her family found out. However, her teammates continually encouraged her to return to her family, and even though she refused at first, she eventually decided to go back and tell them the truth. Even though her family was shocked by this revelation, they still accepted her for who she was and still loved her. However, Nicole knew that she couldn't go back to her normal life, so she left her old self behind and went straight into her new persona of Animal Girl. I really had a lot of fun with making these, and there's going to be other speed paint episodes where I go into other characters from this series, and there's even going to be a speed paint with all these characters in one image kind of thing, kind of like a group superhero pose. So yeah, that's it for with today's episode. Be sure to like, subscribe, and ring the bell for notifications if you haven't already, and leave a comment. Let me know what you'd want to see from a speed paint series for me. Thanks for watching. Bye.